Good day, everyone. We all like a good story. They're fun, particularly a good story about brothers, a good brother story. We see them in the movies all the time. Brothers who love one another, they enjoy one another, they're sometimes in playful competition together. In recent years, we've had a couple sets of brothers play out their lives before us on the football field. There's the Kelsey brothers, two professional football brothers playing for opposite teams. In fact, a year or so ago, they each played each other in the Super Bowl. And mom is walking around with a jersey split down the middle with each son's number and name on it. Then, of course, there's the Barber brothers, who one was running back, one was a defensive back. We like their stories. We like their stories because they remind us that brothers can dwell together in unity. Growing up, I watched two sets of brothers, actually, my uncles, my dad and his brother, Fleming, and then his other brother, William, and brother Gene, watching those men enjoy one another, help one another, grow together, become old together. And then, of course, I have my own brother, Charles. Charles and I would compete all the time. I'm the older brother, so you have all the older brother stuff. But we enjoyed one another. We're completely different in personality and temperament, as are the Kelsey brothers, the Barber brothers, and the other sets of Mann brothers. There's also another set of Mann brothers, my cousin Tony and his brother Tommy. Completely different as night and day. Yet, as we each have our own differences, we each live differently, but we loved one another. We encouraged one another. We like those stories in Hollywood. We like them as we see them played out before us. Years ago, I have to think my brother and I must have been in junior high or upper elementary, and Charles was a little younger. Charles was 2 years younger than me. And so, we're rambunctious kids, go play outside, do everything. One day I remember my mom coming out of the kitchen, around to the dining room, into the living room, saying, I wonder where my boys are, what they're doing. They got two knuckleheads doing stuff. Well, it turns out that when she turned the corner into the living room, there we were in what was essentially a large vestibule that we used for a TV room. We're sitting there, both of us in the same chair, watching some TV show because we're brothers. We enjoyed one another, as all the other brothers that I've mentioned. Now, granted, brothers do have their disputes. That's the other side of Hollywood stories. Brothers who are in dispute with one another, who don't like one another. The competition has gotten out of hand. There's no one there to settle them down. And that's where we are with John. John today has been talking to us about love being an action verb, loving each other. But then he gives us this carefully worded illustration. He says, love one another, not as Cain, who was the evil one and slew his brother. And for what reason did he kill him? Because his deeds were evil and his brothers were righteous. Why that counterbalance there? Because each one of us carries a level of evil in our heart. I know we're washed clean by the blood. We have Jesus Christ living in us. Yes, we do. All of those things are true. Yet each one of us has a tendency to slay our brother. Now, why? There's a couple reasons for that. John helps us here. He says evil versus righteous. Well, what's the idea behind evil versus righteous? Evil is hatred. Evil is anger. Evil are those things that make us lash out when we don't get our way. Righteousness is displaying and showing the calmness and the presence of Christ in us. Cain gives way to his evil. There's a wonderful, wonderful verse in this Genesis story of Cain and Abel. God says to Cain, sin is crouching at your door. You must master it. In our lives, we must master, take control of ourselves so that our hatred does not get out of control. It's very easy and quite common for us to see our brothers, sisters, those around us as enemies, not as brothers and sisters, birthed the same, called the same. When we see each other as enemies, it's very easy to give into the things that separate us, that make us angry, that cause the murderous evil within us to come out, whether they are prejudices, our isms that we live with, languages. We can create anything in the world to separate us when we begin to see ourselves as enemies of one another. When we see ourselves as enemies of one another, it's easy to slay one another. If you ever happen upon the World War II Museum in New Orleans, you go in, and there's a whole piece at the beginning of the museum, after you've entered, of course, on propaganda. Propaganda speaks into our hearts and makes us believe things about each other that just are not true. We create pictures in our minds that take hold in our souls, and we begin to see each other as enemies, to hate one another. Hate then gets to violence. Violence gets to murder. It is the intention of our hearts, because it is easier sometimes to live in the evil there, as opposed to, as God tells Cain, master it. Take charge of it. Realize that it is there, trying to call you to itself, that you may succumb and commit murder. Why the jealousy about righteousness? Because righteousness walks with an assurance and confidence that wickedness does not have. Wickedness is always trying to prove itself worthy. Righteousness realizes that it is worthy, and therefore walks in that confidence that I know who and whose I am. Yes, you can go good versus evil if you want. But again, when you're walking in righteousness, you know the care of the Father. You know his presence with you. You walk in that confidence. When your deeds are evil, you're always afraid of being found out. And none of us know what the argument was, what caused this to happen between Cain and Abel. We much rather deal with the Kelsey brothers, the Mann brothers, the Barber brothers, because we can see there, even though there's differences. But in this case, we know that evil won because one was not willing to let go of jealousy, fear, hatred, prejudice, those things that separate us from one another. John says, that's not love. Don't love like that. The commandment you've heard from the beginning, you shall love one another. Love one another as yourself. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. If I'm doing that, I don't have time for the evil intentions of my heart, because I know mastery means submitting those things to the Father, that he may use me to be loving. That's what God means when he tells Cain, master it. Give it to me, and instead walk in righteousness. But he continued in his evil deeds, his evil ways, his murderous heart, and slaying his brother. My prayer for you today is this, that you master the evil intentions of your heart and give them to Jesus, that your deeds may indeed become righteous, that we not slay our brothers and sisters with our words, with our thoughts, our attitudes, but instead we love them and speak life into them. Jesus, indeed, thank you for this illustration of Cain and Abel. Lord, thank you too for the other illustrations of brothers who, Lord, seem to walk in righteousness because of the way you speak into their hearts. Lord, thank you, and help us not to be like Cain, but Lord, to walk in righteousness like Abel. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Be blessed today, my dear friends.